Nothing to see here, just a major right wing influencer making the most heinous insinuations of TPUSA after Charlie Kirk's assassination.
It reeks of an inside job. That is how I feel. And the more that we learn about the story, the little changes that happen, the inexplicable things that we're learning, it becomes clearer and clearer that somehow, at some layer, at some stage, Turning Point USA is involved.
Hey everyone, Rich Lowry of National Review here, and that, of course, was the crackpot influencer Candace Owens making the case that somehow, for some reason, TPUSA was in on the murder of its own founder, Charlie Kirk. Now, this is an open and shut murder case. Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk in the neck from relatively close range with a rifle from a nearby rooftop after fulminating about what a hater Charlie supposedly was. But Candace has dismissed that and instead launched her own investigation, as she calls it, episode after episode of innuendo, insinuation, ridiculous theorizing. She focuses on minutia. She asks her viewers and listeners for help tracking down supposed leads. She makes dark insinuations, as we just heard, about TPUSA, about the Trump administration, about, of course, the Jews and Israel, and suggests these dark and shadowy, as yet unknown forces responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk are coming after her next. She is the podcasting equivalent of the reprehensible New Orleans prosecutor Jim Garrison, who, in pursuit of ridiculous, preposterous conspiracy theories about the assassination of JFK, ruined the life of an innocent man he prosecuted named Clay Shaw. This didn't stop Oliver Stone from valorizing Garrison in his movie JFK. The prosecutor was played, of course, by Kevin Costner.
Jim Garrison.
Yes?
Glad you came. Sorry about the precautions.
Well, I just hope it was worth my while, Mr.
I could give you a false name, but I won't. Just call me X.
Despite Oliver Stone making Garrison into a hero, he was a loathsome nut. As George Will wrote of Garrison, he, quote, staged an assassination investigation that involved recklessness, cruelty, abuse of power, publicity mongering, and dishonesty, all on a scale that strongly suggested lunacy leavened by cynicism. Now, most of that applies incredibly aptly to Candace Owen, who's a thoroughgoing conspiracy theorist, and a hallmark of her advocacy in support of these ideas is that she doesn't know nearly as much as she thinks she does. Check out this take from Candace on why the moon landing was fake.
And so there's a basic thing that you guys can do. If you're like somebody who's like, it had to have happened, the moon landing, what you can do is look up, I'm calling this the firmament, but it's the, what is the belt, the 200 miles out, you hit the
Asteroid belt? No.
Van Allen belt. Okay, so there's a Van Allen belt. So we have never gone beyond that belt, right? There's been no human that's gone beyond that belt since the moon landings, allegedly. And not even Elon Musk, when they go out to space, they have to stay, like there is a space station, but like once you get 200 miles out, you hit the Van Allen belt, which has an incredible amount of radiation. NASA has said, like, in order for us to get through it, we'd have to have cement blocks around someone.
Let's give her some credit. She eventually did come up with the name of the Van Allen belts. These are radiation belts around the Earth. NASA was indeed concerned with them during the Apollo mission and went out of its way to plan carefully to limit the spacecraft's exposure in the Van Allen belt. Mystery solved, but Candace still thinks that Stanley Kubrick, the great director, actually staged the moon landing. Then there's her take on dinosaurs.
This conversation happened and it was so funny. I was just walking with Savannah, my manager, because we do like these little evening walks, and I just looked up to her and I was like, dinosaurs, that seems pretty fake and gay.
I'll give her this. Brontosauruses do seem a little like that uncle who mysteriously never got married and you're always wondering why. But her theory here is based on the idea that only paleontologists have found dinosaur bones. Therefore, there must be conspiracy among paleontologists to manufacture dinosaur bones in order to undermine faith in God, when the fact is non-paleontologists have found dinosaur bones all the time. Now, a lot of her conspiracy theories have to do with the Jews and Israel. Here's a partial list compiled by the X account AG Hamilton of her various theories. They include that Israel is involved with September 11th, that Jews are behind the Bolshevik Revolution in order to carry out a genocide against Christians, Holocaust, fake or exaggerated, crimes of the Allies in World War II worse than the Nazis, Israel and AIPAC carried out the JFK assassination, a secret cabal of Jews killed Michael Jackson, Ataturk, secret Jew, Stalin, secret Jew, Harvard, a Zionist base, a Mossad base. I guess it makes sense if Israel wants to carry out a strike against, say, Tufts. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, a Mossad spy. Here's an interesting one. Zoran Mamdani, secret Zionist agent. You could have fooled me. Elie Wiesel, a liar. On and on. That brings us back to the Charlie Kirk assassinations. She thinks Tyler Robinson isn't responsible, and for some very dumb reasons.
First and foremost, Tyler Robinson has never confessed. They acknowledge that he has never confessed to this crime, and he still is pleading innocence on the shooting.
Well, of course he hasn't confessed to authorities. This is the one point of leverage he has to potentially avoid the death penalty. People who are guilty, criminals, say they're innocent and plead not guilty all the time. That doesn't prove anything. Now, she goes on to say later after that clip that she hears that Robinson is bewildered by the idea that he carved messages into bullet casings. But again, what is he going to say? Just give authorities everything and lose any potential leverage he has in a case where there's a mountain of evidence against him, including these damning text messages he exchanged with his boyfriend in the immediate aftermath of the assassination. Now, Owens tries to wiggle out of that evidence by saying, oh, well, Robinson was a smart guy. There's no way he would have done anything so stupid as to put his guilt in writing in the immediate aftermath of the crime. But smart people commit crimes all the time, and it's a common impulse to want to confess to someone close to you. She also says the vocabulary in these text messages really puts them in doubt because he uses the word vehicle, and she pretends as though the word vehicle is incredibly rare, and there's no way Robinson, who she's characterized as a smart in other contexts, would use such a word. And then she uses video to try to prove this point from a traffic stop, the body cam footage of the cops. And it's true that Robinson uses the word car at certain points during that stop. He also uses the word vehicle. So she is dismissing all the clear obvious evidence here because it doesn't suit her agenda of making this a big mystery and indicting shadowy forces. So what she says, instead of Robinson acting alone, no. This was a military operation. There are 2 shots and the rifle was fired just to cover up the sound of a handgun or another weapon at closer range.
It looks like a military operation. Everything that we see looks like a military operation on that day. And that's the problem.
QED, elementary, my dear Watson. So since there's no evidence for this whatsoever, she has to pile innuendo on top of innuendo and focus on minutia to create the sense that she's closing in on the shadowy forces really responsible here. Mike McCoy, the chief of staff of TPUSA, made a phone call after Kirk's shooting. Isn't that suspicious? A guy in the neighborhood where Tyler Robinson was seen walking down the street on surveillance video or ring camera video. He works for an outfit that makes valves called Caldera Engineering. Let's investigate Caldera Engineering. Oh, they once hired a gay actor. Oh, they once did some work for Israel. Highly suspicious. Or Josh Hammer, the NatCon commentator who conveniently for Candace's purposes is Jewish. He tweeted the day before Charlie was assassinated. Charlie was his friend. He tweeted about public execution, right? Isn't it really weird that Charlie the next day was executed in public? No, Josh Hammer was tweeting about the Charlotte train murder, and he was tweeting about the killer in that case. She's obsessed with an Egyptian plane. Not clear why an Egyptian plane matters here, but she's all about the tail numbers of the Egyptian plane and where it was going and at what altitude. So this is all misdirection, and she's engaging in the classic conspiratorial dynamic that the more something is denied, and really the more plausibly it's denied, the more it proves there must be something there. And by her own logic, she's got to go higher and higher with this and point a finger at the Trump administration, whose FBI is conducting the investigation that she must believe is fundamentally corrupt. This is what she had to say about Don Jr. the other day.
Man, oh man, you guys, I just am wondering how deep this thing really goes.
Yeah, of course, Candace. Trump officials are covering up the true murderers of their friend, Charlie Kirk, one of their chief advocates and organizers on the outside. This is crazy, but her game ultimately here is to get to her favorite target, the Jews.
There was nobody more psychotically insistent that people stop asking questions about Charlie's death immediately. I mean, early hours, right? Than the people that are dedicated to the Israel lobby.
Now, Owens has made much of some legitimate behind-the-scenes contention over Charlie's position on Israel towards the end. Publicly, throughout his career, very supportive of Israel. He hated the Groypers, these white nationalists. He clashed with them in public all the time. But there was a lot of discussion about where he was going to land on Israel publicly towards the end. And there was some donor dissatisfaction. Now, this is not unusual. When a donor gives a nonprofit or an advocacy group money, he or she is only doing that because he or she believes that the organization is going to reflect his or her priorities. And if it doesn't, then that donor might pull their funding. That's not a scandal. It's not unusual. If they are dissatisfied, yeah, they'll pull their money back. But what they won't do is immediately undertake a clandestine effort to assassinate the leader of the organization they've just pulled their funding from. This is crazy, but this is exactly what Candace is going after.
It's looking to me like the apparent plan was to assassinate Charlie Kirk, who had at long last faltered on the pro-Israel cause, okay, his words, not mine, and then to stage a hostile takeover of his brand and of his legacy.
This gets back around to the clip we started with, that this is an inside job somehow. What is she saying there? She's saying that people who worked for Charlie Kirk, people who were friends with Charlie Kirk, people who loved Charlie Kirk, people who looked up to Charlie Kirk as a mentor were responsible at a certain level for his murder. This must be causing great pain for Erica Kirk and everyone else at the organization. Here's someone with a large platform who has some inside information and therefore a little bit of credibility because she was friends with Charlie, suggesting that the organization he founded and the organization that Erica Kirk wants to keep running is so fundamentally corrupt that it bears guilt for the murder of its own founder and the father of Erica Kirk's children. For shame, for shame. But Candace Owens is so near pathologically self-involved and callous. She doesn't realize the pain that she is causing with these hideous and stupid conspiracy theories. Now, it may be that she doesn't matter much at the end of the day, that she's ultimately a marginal figure. Certainly her podcasts don't get the kind of attention, say, a Tucker Carlson interview does. And she doesn't have the power of, say, the aforementioned Jim Garrison, that prosecutor in New Orleans. But certainly, if she could get a good Dreyfus case going, get a good Clay Shaw type case going, she would. She is stoking conspiratorial thinking with a special focus on the Jews, who she maintains are capable of any infamy. This is a very online 21st century contribution to a rancid tradition from which nothing good has ever come. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.